Hey everybody, this is Meowth, that's right, and today I'm going to talk to you about the Battlefield 4 Chopper heads-up display. Now this is very similar of course to the heads-up display for Battlefield 3, but even though some of you guys may be pretty good chopper pilots already, you may not quite understand what all the indications or markings mean, so I hope to clear this up for you just a little bit. And if you guys found this information helpful, please feel free to massage that like button and come visit our channel if you got some time. So let's get started. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about is the heading indicator, and this is the indicator that is in the top center of your heads-up display, and it will indicate in a 360-degree horizontal plane of rotation what direction you are facing. If you have a zero indication on your heading indicator, this tells you that you're facing to the north. If you turn just a little bit farther to 90, it means that you're facing to the east. Even farther, you've got 180, that's south, and 270, which is west. Now, as I bring the chopper around towards 0 degrees on the heading indicator, you'll notice that on the mini-map, you're at north. The heading indicator is numbered in 45-degree increments, with each tick mark in between the numbers representing 5 degrees. Now, it's not terribly important for you to know, but I do like to be thorough. It's very important for you to understand which direction you're going, because when enemy traffic is reported to you, it's reported as a position relative to you, and will allow you to make the proper response to whatever that call out was, whether it's attack, whether you can attack from that position, or whether you need to hide, and where you can hide. In most cases, knowing your enemy's position relative to you, even a half a second sooner can be the difference between whether you live or whether you die. Let's move on. Slightly down and to the left are the countermeasures and the countermeasures status section. This tells you, of course, which countermeasures that you have. In this case, I have the IR flares, and of course how long it is until I get to use them, or if I can use them, it will indicate ready. It is extremely important that you use your countermeasures at the correct time, because it does take 25 seconds to regenerate, and if you don't have them when you really need them, you could find yourself being somebody's fireball in the sky, and nobody wants that. Next level down on the left side, you have your ground speed indicator, and what this does is tells you exactly how fast you're moving over the ground in any given direction, whether it's forwards, backwards, or side to side. This is going to be particularly important to you if you're trying to fly in a very small or confined area where you need to keep your movement over the ground very limited to avoid drifting into, say, a wall or something of that nature. Or if you're capturing an objective and you're trying to make sure that you continue to hover over it rather than drift away from it, which would cause you to take a lot longer to capture an objective. And if you end up losing the round because of it, your team's going to get pretty pissed off if they know that you were doing it. Now, I won't tell you how I know that, but just trust me on that one. Right below your ground speed indicator, you have your torque meter, and what this does is tells you the percentage of the power that you have available that you're currently using. It ranges from 10% all the way up to 100%. It's important to note that as long as you are not increasing or decreasing your power, your torque meter is going to default to 55%. Now 55% power is an important power setting because that's the power setting required to maintain level altitude as long as you're not pitched nose up or nose down or banked left or right. If you have a power setting less than 55%, you cannot maintain altitude. And if you want to move forward while maintaining level altitude, you're going to have to apply more than 55% power. Moving on, looking directly below your heading indicator, you have your bank angle indicator. This is going to tell you how far you're leaning to the left or to the right. When you're straight up and down, the arrow is going to be right on the center mark, which is 0 degrees of bank. When rolling your helicopter to the right, the arrow in the bank angle indicator is going to move to the left, indicating you need to roll to the left until it's straight up and down to return to level flight. And of course, if you roll to the left, it's going to move to the right side. Next, directly below your bank angle indicator, you have that horizontal bar that goes across the middle of your screen. That is your artificial horizon. Your artificial horizon is always going to stay aligned with the horizon off in the distance. If you bank right, it's going to maintain level. It's going to turn just a little bit to the left. If you pitch down, it's going to go up, and if you pitch up, it's going to go back down. This is actually the biggest difference that I've seen between the Battlefield 4 HUD and the Battlefield 3 HUD. The Battlefield 3 HUD used to have a full-blown pitch ladder which tells you how many degrees up or down, whereas the Battlefield 4 HUD does not. I gotta wonder if they're going to put it in the full game or if they're just going to leave it out because they decided that it makes things look a little bit cleaner so you can see where you're going a little bit easier. I don't know. The other thing I would say is that the Battlefield 4 HUD seems to move just a little bit more fluidly. Next thing that you have right in the center of the screen is the crosshairs and the I-beam. The crosshairs are fairly simple in what they do in that they tell you exactly where the nose of the helicopter is pointing. The I-beam is your targeting reticle for your Hydra rockets, and if you want to try to hit a stationary object, you want to make sure that you manipulate your I-beam to be right on your target. You also probably want to be a little bit smarter than I was here, because when I was doing this strafing run here, I only shot with 10 rockets and I did not reload in between the next strafing run, so I did not get to finish him off right here. I had to come back around for I think 2 more passes, so be sure that you reload after each strafing run so you get maximum damage. I did ultimately win this battle, but it took quite a few more passes than it really should have. When you switch to your secondary weapon in your attack helicopter, you're going to be using heat seekers or whatever you have available or unlocked when you get to the main game. And this requires a different targeting system. For this, we're using a targeting circle. And you have to keep your object of intended attack right inside your target circle in order to establish and maintain a lock-on. Here I got a little bit carried away. I decided I was going to try to give this guy a heart attack, make him crash if I could, but I got a little carried away. Next time I'll realize not to make that stupid mistake. Next, directly below your targeting system, we have the weapon that you have selected. So in this case right now I have Hydra rockets ready, but if I had the heat seekers out, it would say heat seekers instead. And directly below that we have your turn coordinator, which is the 2 little vertical lines with the ball in the middle of it. Your turn coordinator tells you when the tail of your helicopter is falling to the inside of the turn or swinging to the outside of the turn. This starts to become very important when you start to navigate between buildings or very close spaces to try to outmaneuver somebody else who maybe wants to shoot you down. And you may have to do this under fire when you are very close to death, and you want to make sure that you have very good control over where that tail goes, or any part of your helicopter really. Next, down below your turn coordinator, you have your gunner view. Your gunner view tells you exactly where your gunner is looking relative to where you're pointing. So you want to make sure that if your gunner view goes all the way off to say the right side, or maybe to the left, maybe you want to try turning to the left or to the right to give your gunner just a little bit better view on whatever it was that he was trying to see. He may have an enemy in sight before you do, so you want to make sure that you give him the option to explore it. Now obviously if you're maneuvering between buildings and you can't afford to turn towards where he's looking, don't kill yourself over it, but just keep it in mind. Directly to the right of the bank angle indicator is some sort of altimeter. This will tell you the altitude that you're at. Now this isn't, say, a normal altimeter that tells you altitude versus mean sea level, because if it was, when I was hovering right over the water down there at 2 to 3 feet, it would indicate 2 to 3 feet. But instead it indicates between 50 to 70 feet off. And it's the same in Battlefield 3. For some reason, both of them are 50 to 70 feet off of what it should be. This altitude won't tell you how close you are to the ground. And the only thing useful I can take away from it is it will tell you approximately what altitude you can level out at, which is somewhere around 371 to 73, depending on your momentum, if you can get carried up that high. And that's of course if you have 100% power in your torque meter. Now the number directly below that altimeter inside the box is going to be your altitude above ground level, or AGL altimeter. Now this number is going to be a lot more important, as if you're flying very low where it's a lot more dangerous, you're going to want to know exactly how close you are to the ground, because you can't see very well below you there. Another nice feature of this box is that it will flash red at you whenever you're below 50 feet AGL as a ground proximity warning type system. If you move to the right of the AGL altimeter, skip over that arrow for now. Let's go to that vertical row of horizontal lines. This is going to be a visual AGL altimeter. And what this will tell you, of course, is your altitude, whether you're in close proximity to the ground, but it can only do it up to 100 feet. Now, the first area towards the bottom of it, where it has a lot of little tick marks, is your altitude from 0 to 50 feet. Then you got the next tick mark up that's going to be 75 feet, and then the one above that, which is going to be 100. Let's move back to the left, to that arrow that's pointing to the right. This is your vertical speed indicator. It tells you how fast you are climbing in feet per minute or descending in feet per minute. Now it's of course important, because if you're trying to hover over a location, say you want to hover over something that's dangerous to touch down on, you want to make sure that you're not descending. I gotta be honest, I really feel like the Battlefield 4 beta vertical speed indicator is not going to be the same as when it comes out on the full version. I feel they're going to change it to a little bit more closely match the Battlefield 3 vertical speed indicator, because it makes a little bit more sense to me. You'll notice that the vertical speed indicator on Battlefield 3 is right in the middle of the visual AGL altimeter, and in Battlefield 4 beta it's just a little bit below that line. It makes a little bit more sense to have it right in the middle, because the middle point will give you anything above the line being gaining altitude and anything below the line losing altitude. Lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the HUD on the transport helicopter, which is basically identical to the attack helicopter, with a couple of differences. One being there is no gunner view box, so you're going to want to keep that in mind when you're trying to point your gunners in the correct direction to be able to shoot whoever they need to shoot. And two, you don't have the aiming reticule. All you have is that little W that acts basically the same as the crosshair on the attack helicopter. That does it for me, and if there's something that you have a question on and you don't feel it was explained here, let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to help you out.